Hello students, and welcome back to this project. We're going to be finishing up this NC State cowboy hat tonight. What I've got here is all my materials laid out. I've got a Cricut HTV, which is heat transfer vinyl. I've got all that stuff cut out and sized and ready to go onto here. And what I've done is I've used a soapstone pen to indicate, where the center is and get some guidelines for where I can put these decals and make sure that they're all lined up properly. The eyelets that I use are going to be some white ones in here. If I get this guy open, I got these right here. I'm going to use these white eyelets, and it has a punch set that comes with it, so you can punch holes through the material. And we use this little hammer here to set them in. But first, what I want to do is show you how I got this iron set up. You don't want to put it all the way on linen or cotton. I usually start mine off on wool. And traditionally, when you do heat transfer vinyl, you're dealing with a porous material like a cotton shirt or something like that. But since this has the cardboard backing on it, it's not going to let the fabric breathe. So you don't want to put the iron on your decal for too long or too hot. So it's best to start at a lower temperature first and see how it's sticking, and then work your way up to it. So we're going to hop over to the ironing board now, and I'm going to lay these decals on here and get them ironed on, and so that we can jump back over to the sewing machine and the hot glue gun and put all this stuff together. Just a quick side note, I was going to show you guys how I'd put this into the Cricut and made an SVG file and all that stuff, but I'm pretty sure this is probably a trademark logo, and I could probably get in trouble for doing this, but I feel like I'm safe with all 45 of you guys who are going to watch this. So basically what it is, I broke this into two different colors. I'm going to use the red as the background, and I'm going to lay the wolf down first, so that the red will kind of shine through. And then once that's put down, I'll come back with the white and lay it directly on top, so it will have that layered look with the black shadow on the background and the white showing through on the front. So let's do it. Okay, so now that I feel like I got this up to a pretty good temperature, what I want to do first is kind of preheat the area. And you'll notice when it's getting warm, because you can see, I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but the fabric will actually start to change colors. Don't worry about that, because once it turns back to its temperature, it should return to its normal color. But I usually go ahead and get the surface just a little bit warm. And then I'm going to use my little guideline here to help me determine where the middle of the word is going to be. And I also try to center it, from the center of the elastic and to the outside of the brim, keeping in mind that I am going to have a trace of thread going around the outside where I blend the top and the bottom brims together. So what I do have here is a piece of Teflon. I didn't mention this before. This is like a non-stick piece of material that will be a barrier in between the iron and the plastic. It just kind of adds a little bit of a buffer. But once you get your decal where you think you are comfortable with how it's going to look on there, place that down and then make a couple passes with your iron, because if this gets too hot, it's going to melt your decal and disfigure it, and then you've ruined all the work that you've just done. So I usually make a couple quick passes and take a look at the decal. When it starts to separate from the plastic, it will look like a lighter gray, and there is a certain time limit that you should put this down according to the packaging, but I usually just go by feel, which probably doesn't help you guys out much, but I'll go ahead and put some heat on it and then let it cool, and then see how well it has made its adhesion to the fabric. Yeah, see here it's starting to come. You can see a little bit, I don't know, you probably can't, but there's a little bit of a discoloration here, but we're a darker black right there. So I'm going to add some more heat and some pressure. Just kind of going back and forth, and you can see it's starting to curl up. It's going to come up on its own as it cools off. But as you peel this back, and if you start to see that it is coming up off of your material, go ahead and put it back down and add just a little bit more heat. I'm going to try and cool this off a little bit and see if we can just get it to come up. And this is real time. I didn't fast forward or anything. There we go. That's good. And this soapstone pen, it will just rub away and disappear. That's the good thing about it. So let me put this logo on the opposite side over here, and then we'll get started on the crown. All right, now for the crown portion, what we want to do is we want to start with whatever is the furthest in and work our way out, because if we put this decal on first, then we're going to be going back over that with heat at some point. And I kind of want to just make sure that when I put that one decal on, that I'm done with that area and move on to the next one. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with this first and work our way to the outside. And all I'm going to do is just center it in between my thread lines here and my thread lines here, and iron this on, and then we'll work to the wolf on this, and then the two S's on the ends. So I can still kind of faintly see my soapstone mark. I'm going to center this guy up. And this is going to be the bottom of the crown where the brim meets up to it. So I know I can kind of go center it between this line and center it between that line. Now, what I'm going to do is line this up to where it fits inside of the black, and then iron it on. And I'll let that cool and peel this off and repeat that process on this side. Alright, so now that that part of the process is over with, the next thing I want to do is go ahead and roll this and kind of pre-bend everything and go ahead and start to get that general roundness of the crown, because with it laying flat like this and we start to go putting pieces together, it's going to want to tend to try and pull itself apart. So the general idea right now is to just go ahead and roll it on the edge of the table and get some roundness to it, and let it go ahead and start forming its natural curve to go in the direction we want it to. And that way everything will kind of line up like it's supposed to. All right, now that we kind of got this predisposed of being in curved up, I want to take a straight edge and go ahead and form these sides. Go ahead and bend these sides up just like I typically would on a beer hat, but well, I want to reinforce it on the back side here with this ruler. That way nothing bends that's not supposed to bend. All right, now that everything is starting to collapse on each other, I want to do these two ends together just on that line like this, and the same with this side. And then we'll cut this for our tabs that we'll flip up to glue the top brim onto. But we're going to do that. We're not going to glue everything together just now. What we're going to do is glue these up, and then I'll mark where I'm going to put my eyelets at. So with this kit comes like a little punch, and I usually use a little bit of a backing plate so that I don't damage my table any further than I already have right here. Okay, so now that I've got these holes poked in here, I'm going to fold this over and line up my sizing mark there, and I'm just going to put a little permanent marker mark right there so I can puncture through this. Okay, so now that we've got the holes in there where everything is going to line up, one thing we need to do prior to assembling the rest of this is to take just a little bit of layer off of this panel here, because these eyelets are only so thick, and it needs to actually mushroom over to lock these two pieces together. So what I have to do is I have to remove some of this material to allow room for those eyelets. So I usually just take and cut a square out of each of these 4 points, and then that gives me enough room to sandwich everything together. All right, so now we're going to hop back over to the hot glue gun and get these lined up and glued down, and then we can do the eyelets. Okay, so now that the crown is done, we've got these holes lined up and everything like that. Bend these tabs up, and I want to do a quick check real quick just to make sure that this all fits on there like it's supposed to. Right there at that. Fitment looks good. So now the next thing I'm going to do is take my Sharpie, and I'm going to run a line right around the bottom. Let's see if you can see this. I'm going to take and just run a little line around the bottom, and then I'm going to take my scissors and cut relief cuts in that so that these tabs can fold up and be glued to the top of the brim, or the bottom of the brim. Okay, so now that the eyelets are in and everything is pretty much ready to go for the top of the brim to go on, what I need to do before I go any further is to put my crease in the middle. I usually use a straight edge ruler, but if we're using a pencil, I usually get some graphite on there. So what you want to do is make sure your ruler is clean. And before doing this, and then just press your seam down. Make sure your lines are lined up here, and then just add some glue around here and secure the brim to the crown. All right, now that the brim is mated to the crown, the next step is to make these two surfaces together. And I have a guideline right here and a guideline right there. I'll just line those guys up and glue this down just like that. And then I'll put my piping in here and jump over to the sewing machine. All right, now it's time for the piping. I'm going to separate these two brims and wedge this in here, and it should hold it in place, but oftentimes it doesn't, so I'll just add little dabs of glue to the bias tape, the piping, and it will hold it in place before I take it over to the sewing machine. So before I start, I want to show you this foot that I can adjust how far I want to put my seam. Instead of a traditional regular pressure foot, I use this one. Now, the last step. I'm going to take my heat gun. I'm going to apply a little bit of heat to the brim, and that's going to make it just a little bit pliable so that I can bend the bill up. Well, that concludes this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Feel free to ask me any questions in the comment section. I'll be glad to help you out the best I can. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.